This video is for everyone who suffers under Zoom fatigue, so the tiredness, worry and burnout with the overuse of virtual platforms of communication, particularly video conferencing. For most of us, working from home oftentimes feels a lot more tedious than it used to be in a classic office environment. And that's why I will share 6 very practical tips how you can reduce that feeling of tiredness when working from home and using these video conferencing platforms to become much more balanced, refreshed and productive in the future again. Hi all, I'm Leah, a consultant having worked from home for a few years now. And on this channel I provide career and real life advice. So make sure to subscribe and activate the bell to get notified whenever another value-adding video is released. To reduce Zoom fatigue, you should first try to reduce the overall number of virtual meetings that are in your calendar every day and week. This can be done by effective and dedicated calendar and time management. If you want to know the nuts and bolts, check out this video where I talk about proper calendar management. Overall, there are 2 major aspects in calendar organization that are key to reducing Zoom fatigue. First, schedule dedicated breaks and avoid back-to-back meetings. So besides taking your general lunch or coffee breaks that you should not sacrifice for work-related meetings, by the way, you should set up shorter meetings in general. So instead of setting up an hour-long meeting, just put in 50 or 55 minutes maximum, such that you always have a break in between the meetings. That allows you to get some fresh water or coffee, or just provides a few minutes to take a deep breath and move or stretch a little bit. Second, challenge each and every meeting and ask yourself if it's really necessary that you participate in that meeting. Maybe you can only add value in the first half of the discussion, such that you could drop out after your contribution, or you might not even be necessary for the meeting at all. So whenever you are unsure about that, reach out to the host or the meeting organizer and let them clarify what the agenda and goal of the meeting is and why your presence is required. If it's not necessary for you to participate, just be bold and decline the invite. However, in case you need to go to that meeting anyway, make sure to not multitask and just focus on the meeting in which you're participating. I must admit, I myself have tried to multitask far too often during meetings by writing emails in parallel, reading through some documents, or just doing some research here and there. But honestly, that's not really helpful, even almost impossible. And I promised myself to get better with that. Since the only thing that increases when multitasking is not your output or quality, but rather your level of stress and the things you are missing out in either of the tasks or discussions. So therefore, always focus on the respective meeting and try to get 100% out of this time with a good level of satisfaction and concentration, instead of getting 2 times around 30% and an increased stress level. Video conferences obviously mostly happen at your desk, in your chair. Hopefully your office equipment is set up in an ergonomic way such that your posture does not suffer from long days sitting at your desk. If you have not yet set up your desk and chair in such a way, make sure to research how that's being done and change, for example, the heat or inclination of your chair or your monitor. In any case, one thing that is still missing when having virtual meetings all day is overall mobility and movement. Just because the digital presence often hinders you from stretching or moving during meetings at least a little bit. So in order to increase your mobility even during video conferences, you can do a few things. You should first create enough space on your desk between your screen and yourself to use a pen and paper to doodle or write something down. I myself usually have a massage ball at my desk with which I sometimes play during meetings. Also use different postures and most importantly, try to stand up as often as possible. Ideally, you have a heat adjustable desk that you can move up and down to switch positions. I bought one a while ago and hands down, this was one of the best decisions ever. Not only can you move around, stand up, but also your presentation and communication style improves by standing up and have more flexibility with your gestures and your expressions. By now, I usually stand the entire day and just sit down for lunch break. And I tell you, it's all a matter of training and you can do it as well. Finally, use pauses or breaks to stretch or walk around or do some squats or anything like that. Just try to keep yourself flexible in the best possible way. Next, try to reduce close-up eye contact whenever possible. Why? Well, in video conferences, everyone is staring at everyone all the times. Imagine, this would never happen in a real meeting, since usually people are concentrating only on the person that speaks. But not only constant eye contact is exhausting, but also the fact that people in virtual meetings constantly interfere with your personal or even intimate space. You might know this chart depicting interpersonal distance as defined by Edward T. Hall back in the 1960s, which defines your own intimate space within a radius of 45 centimeters from you and your personal space for friends and family within a radius of 1.2 meters. And now look around at your desk, and most likely you will notice that your screen, and with that a bunch of people in video conferences, might constantly interfere with your personal or even intimate space. And that's just because there's not enough distance between you and your screen. So this proximity over several hours of virtual meetings often causes stress, discomfort, and eventually exhaustion. There are a few simple things that you can do to avoid this. First, reduce the size of the video conferencing window drastically. Don't have it in full screen, but rather much smaller, maybe in a corner of your screen, such that you're not directly staring at the other participants all the time. Also make sure that there's enough space between you and your screen, not only to be able to move and stretch and scribble, but also make sure people are not entering your intimate zone all the time. Next up, try to hide your own picture. And I know this is currently not possible with all video conferencing apps, but hopefully with coming updates it will be. You might have never thought about hiding your own picture because the default option is that it's just shown in the lower or in the upper right corner between the other participants. But just compare it to a real face-to-face meeting. Do you usually have a huge mirror on the other side of the table reflecting your face? I guess not. And that's the challenge. Constantly seeing yourself is very tiring and has many negative emotional consequences, such as stress, depression, or tension, which is why you should always hide or at least try to reduce your own picture in video conferences. Finally, just take breaks. Taking breaks in between meetings is, as I mentioned at the very beginning, crucial. But there's also the time during meetings in which you should and can take breaks to not get overly exhausted. With breaks during meetings, I mean primarily two things. First, turning off your own camera and only using audio whenever possible. That way you do not need to look at your own mirror reflection anymore, which we know increases stress and tension. But you can also just minimize the entire video conference window. That way you will again make yourself disappear, but at the same time you will lose sight of all the other meeting participants. It may be a little bit strange at the beginning, knowing that you are in a virtual meeting, not seeing the others anymore and only dialing in via audio. But doing so can release stress, and you can also use that time when not being on camera. For example, you could stretch or move a little bit or look outside the window trying to focus on something else than the computer screen. So you do not only relax your brain, but at the same time you can also relax your eyes. And taking breaks is in general super essential, since video conferences are much more intense and challenging for you than simple face-to-face meetings. On the one hand, you have to be more precise, louder, or clearer when expressing yourself. And that's just because the audio quality might not be perfect for everyone, and obviously you want that everyone gets your points. And on the other hand, you also need to pay much more attention to others, to read their gestures, facial expressions, or emotions via video calls. And that's because you can only see half of the other's body language, so what they are doing with their arms, their head, and their upper body in general. And also, it might be much more difficult to spot minor but really important facial expressions within a digital meeting. So let me know in the comments which of these tips you might want to implement in the future, or which additional ones you want to share. Also, don't forget to subscribe, activate the bell for further value-adding videos. Thanks for watching and see you next time.